Hello and welcome back to New Game Plus. I'm Tim, I'm joined by Donald. How is your new year?
I am refreshed in this new year on New Game Plus. I'm excited for all the reviews that will be churning through this year. But enough about the future. What did you get up to during this time off?
Caught up on a lot of games that I said that 2015 I'd catch up on them.
So Dota 2.
Yes, more Dota 2. But I've almost finished Fallout now. I've faffed about far too much in that game, but I will get around to finishing it. What about you?
I'll ask you again 6 months from now, and I'm very interested in your answer.
Yes.
I got caught in some real grindy games. I got into Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn. I got back into Diablo 3, and I've discovered the unholy world of power leveling.
Yes.
It is a dark, dark path. I do not recommend it, but I'm having the time of my life.
Yes. Certainly those games will draw a lot of your time. Same with Hearthstone, which I'm getting back into.
Yeah.
Or the Tavern Brawls, and I found out that I'm still terrible at that game.
Don't worry, everyone's terrible at that game.
Yes.
Except for me. I'm even more terrible than you somehow.
But we are back for the year.
Yes.
We're kicking off the year, we take a look at Yakuza.
Yep, Yakuza 5, a game that took so long to get to the west from Japan. Let's see if the wait was worth it.
You take a look at Minecraft, the story mode.
Yes. Minecraft stories, who would have thought they would have come together? But we also have a very, very serious business segment, don't we, Tim?
Yes, we take a look at domestic and online violence. Dermy and Jason interview
Andrew Edgar.
But first up,
we have Rodea, the Sky Soldier.
Now, as the dust has settled on 2015, we're revisiting a lot of games that we may not have had the time to play, or namely a lot of the games on the Wii U. And one of those games in particular was Rodea the Sky Soldier for the Wii U. It's an action platformer. Give us a quick rundown of the story, Charlotte.
So it's basically, it follows the story of a soldier called Rodea. He's a robot soldier. He's found himself, he's woken up 1,000 years into the future. And he basically is trying to piece together his past because he took a pretty hard hit before he passed out 1,000 years ago and can't remember anything.
And what else took a very hard hit was the actual game itself, wasn't it?
Yeah, so there wasn't really anything about this game that I liked. The controls were pretty poor. I found the camera infuriating. I found that Rodea would often, I'd target something and he'd fly into something else and then wouldn't cancel and then would just fall to the ground and die.
Given it's developed by some of the old staff behind Sonic, it does seem like it carries a lot of influence from Sonic, albeit done very slowly. So you can notice a lot of the poor animations and a lot of the other stuff. It seems all too vivid now.
Yeah, it's definitely, it didn't look particularly nice. It was alright when I was sort of flying through the levels a bit, but even then it was a bit choppy. It wasn't that great.
The frame rate just does seem to take a bit of a dip for something that doesn't look like it'll chug the system at all. So it just seems to be improperly coded. But everything from the environments to the characters to the game design seems like squandered potential. Like everything from the art looks amazing in the loading screens.
Yeah, it looks amazing. It looks amazing until you look at it too closely, and then there's the issues of
then you'll notice
voice acting. The voice acting made me angry.
Just flat textures, polygons you can actually count.
Yeah, there's just so much about this game.
On.
Yeah, so if ultimately, like, if you were looking to pick up this game, don't do it. Don't do it to yourself. Go get a better platformer. Just don't do it.
Unfortunately, Rodea the Sky Soldier was meant to fly, but unfortunately he falls a bit flat.
Yes, most
You're not going to
definitely.
forgive me for that one, aren't you?
No, actually, I don't mind puns. It's fine.
The viewers won't forgive me.
Minecraft is an open world game in which you can do almost anything. Telltale Games, meanwhile, is renowned for making highly scripted adventure games. So it's weird to see the two together, and yet here we are with Minecraft Story Mode. The game puts you in the shoes of Jess, a girl or boy of your choice, who has to band with her friends to try and reunite the Order of the Stone so that they can save the world from the all-consuming wither storm. So it very much has the sensibilities of a Saturday morning cartoon. All the side characters and villains lean hard into their archetypes, and a lot of the problems in this game are solved through hard work or the power of friendship. As such, this is the lightest Telltale experience to date. Sure, your choices have visible consequences, but they rarely mean anything. But thankfully, all the Telltale stuff, all the other good stuff, is still here. So, good story, good, well-rounded main characters, and the best musical intros in town. And it absolutely nails the Minecraft aesthetic. It looks exactly as you expect, and it has all your favorite Minecraft concepts. The Nether, the End, they're all here. But this game is missing the key part of Minecraft, which is the mining and the crafting. There is no mining here, and the crafting is limited to some highly scripted sequences. And just most critically, this game is unlike the source material in that there is no imagination required here. Minecraft was renowned for being only limited by the player's imagination. There is none of that magic here, which puts Minecraft story mode in a bit of an odd place. It's a compromise, neither the best Telltale nor the best Minecraft game. But still, it has a strong enough story and a sense of style to carry the entire 5-episode season. And if you do start playing, it is worth seeing this game through to the end.
Now, this episode of Serious Business is probably serious enough to justify us both being here. We're covering the topic of the day, which should have been the topic of the last 15 years, but domestic violence and online threats and harassment. We figured we'd go to a much more of a professional person in that field than ourselves.
Yes, well, we spoke to a man called Andrew Edgar, who is a homelessness networker, helps out victims of this stuff. But firstly, what actually is a homelessness networker?
Basically, a homelessness networker role is about resourcing the homelessness and family violence services within the region. So obviously we look at working with the agencies and working with practitioners and doing training and then working with the governments as well as around what's happening within the regions and looking at that policy development at the same time.
Now, we hear the term domestic violence, but do we really understand what it is? What actually are we talking about here?
Look, I think we would say that when it comes to violence against women, family violence, domestic violence, there's a lot of those issues that we would say. A lot of people say it's drinking and it's stress and it's drug and alcohol, all those sort of things.
The easy explanations?
Absolutely. And look, and they generally may play a part in it. But the violence is actually a choice. You make a choice to be violent. Having emotions such as anger and frustration are one thing. Stepping over the line and becoming aggressive and violent is a choice that you need to make. We can change that. Yeah. So the community understanding is changing, and this is a real positive thing. Vic Health do a survey around community attitudes, and the community attitude is changing. So as you said, most people will understand now. It's been in the media enough, the talk enough to say, it's not right, it's wrong, we need to stamp it out. But I think part of the problem is that I think the underlying issues and these sort of intricacies, and because it's such a widespread problem and everybody experiences a bit different, we're still grappling with an understanding within the community of what we're talking about. When you define family violence and domestic violence, we're looking at power and control. So it's around someone using physical violence, emotional violence, economic violence, spiritual violence, all of those things to put power and control over somebody. So it's not an argument. As you said, a lot of relationships will have an argument. And usually from that argument, we would actually, most of us would probably go, look, I said things that I regret, and I won't say that again. Or I slammed a door and I know I shouldn't have done that and I won't do that again. Recognise it, address, move on. But when we talk about violence against women, we're talking about power and control. We're talking about extended behaviours to enforce some control over somebody. That's the difference.
Now, often the common response when you discuss domestic violence is that men are victims of domestic violence too. I guess it's important to ask how that's framed in the reaction to women as victims of domestic violence and also our understandings of masculinity.
Look, I've been doing social work 20 odd years and I've done a child protection and family support, housing, homelessness. The reason that I do this focus on family violence is because that has been a common thread. For the whole 20 years, that's been a common thread. And I can see that the majority of times when we're talking about violence within the home, we're talking about men's violence against women. And that's why we focus on men's violence against women. That is the predominant. There's no escaping that at this time. Homeless services, up to more than 30% of people in homeless services are there escaping family violence. Majority of those women and children. I'm not denying, and most of us aren't denying, that men are victims of family violence too. My thought about that is that we need to start a different narrative. Men experience violence differently, and I don't think we have the support structures around. I don't think we have a cultural definition of what masculinity is to be even socially support a male who has been a victim. That's what we need to work on.
It's a different discussion.
It's a similar discussion, but I think the focus needs to be different.
Like
and I think that Julian Blanc, Julian Blanc's the American coming over, preaching how to pick up women by abusing them. And the question to me, that has been raised is about why, who goes to these and why? How does this happen?
Yeah.
I think the answer really is that we have this perception that men, one, we can't control our sexual urges and we're all the same. And two, that, there's still this community perception that women like the bad guy. So I think a lot of these guys are actually going, following that misconception that we have in this community that this is what masculinity is in Australia, that, we need to be tough and aggressive and strong. And then we've got to have this discussion about what that means. And we've got to have this discussion about, gender equality and how we treat women and the language that we use.
Now, one of the big factors here is the language we use. So we asked, how does our use of language around this issue affect our perceptions of it?
And I think online, we talk about these extreme cases. We do talk about people that die. We do have up to 2 women a week being killed by, present and previous partners. So that is a huge issue. But the predominant issue that we can do, the work that we can do immediately, the work that we all need to do is looking at this language that we use and looking at how we treat women and where we do, put women in there. And that Vic Health survey again, basically it's still seen that, women aren't seen in the community as they shouldn't be. This is a community attitude, is around getting, these higher roles or being a board members or, being a CEO of an agency. And you can see that the numbers aren't there. The positive again for me is I think when I do some of this work and I talk with the younger generation, when we talk with footy clubs, under 18 footy clubs or schools and things like that, and we have this conversation about gender equality and what it means, we engage a really good conversation with younger generation. They seem to get it better than some of the older generations probably do. We get stuck in our ideals. So there is a real hope there that once we have these conversations and we look and we question some of these social norms that we have, that's where we can get more engagement from the community.
So how do we characterise sincere threats and general disagreement? Is there a way that we can acknowledge it online and act if we do observe it actually happening to other people?
I think that's it. I think where do we draw the line? And I think on the online, this is a big part of this conversation is where do we draw the line? Where does frustration, anger and disagreement become threats of assault, rape? And, it's not such a fine line. It's fairly black and white. It's okay to disagree, and it's okay to verbalise a disagreement of someone who, when you have a different point of view. When you start threatening them, that's not right. If you did it in public, people would pick it up, and you would expect consequences from that behaviour if you were in public and you threatened someone with violence. Yeah. Why is it different online? And I think that's where the internet will grapple with this for a while. This online we'll all grapple with this a little bit until we can find this conversation. I'm not sure if we learn to need to disagree. I think we probably know how to disagree. I think sometimes we tend to like to do the extremes, and I think when we're talking about social media and things like that, where everybody's a bit of an expert on it, and where you can sort of be more verbal and more aggressive in your language, with a bit of an LOL on the end, and then it's okay. No, it's not. It's about self-regulation, and it's about the conversation. It's about the narrative that we will form as a community by having these conversations. And we're having these conversations now. You and I are here having this conversation, whereas 5-10 years ago, that wouldn't have been likely.
Well, as a father, I'd say a very good litmus test would be, well, what am I comfortable with people saying to my own daughter?
There's a discussion there, isn't there, as of where, how much would you expect? How much would you put up with as a father if that was your daughter being threatened?
No.
Yeah, where would you get to that point where you kind of, talking to your daughter about, okay, well, you need to, keep yourself safe, and this is just an argument, and, you need to learn to stick up for yourself. Where's the cutoff where you kind of go, no, that's not appropriate, and I need to now step in and do something? If you were in public, that would be fairly obvious. We need to get better at defining that online as well. And we need to be better at understanding what our children's online life is like and engaging with our kids, and young people with their online experience as well, so that we can walk through that. It is about educating them on, putting something on Facebook or putting something on Twitter, which is just a little catchphrase. If you know the person, you know where they're coming from. If you don't know the person, you don't. And so that comment can be read, misconstrued, and lead on to a discussion that you would otherwise have. Do we teach the younger generation to be sceptical of what they see and to question what they see? You know, they're going to get bombarded with media that we've never been exposed to, bombarded by advertising, you know, and sexist visuals and all this sort of thing in advertising. I think one of the things we can do is teach the younger generation about how they step up and go, no, I don't think that's right. I'm going to act on my gut feeling to say there's something wrong with that.
I mean, is it as simple as raising the standards of gender equality in the wider community? Like, is there particularly something else that we need to consider in this conversation?
And it all feeds into that, you know, all feeds into that social norms that we're talking about. And it comes back, you know, and I'll keep bringing it back to this gender inequality, and there's this discussion about gender equality. In other countries, when they have a better focus on gender equality, their family violence rates are lower. When there's other countries where there's less emphasis on gender equality, the family violence rates tend to be higher. You know, there's an obvious key there, and I think it's around how we discuss this and how we change our attitudes.
So what can people do if they feel threatened or they're worried about their safety, or even if they just like a little bit more information about this?
Look, I think I'll go back to, you know, getting information about your own situation. I think this is where this conversation gets complex for the community and for people, because everybody's experience is going to be different. Everybody's understanding of what is abuse and what's not. You know, there's a grey area in there that we're grappling with as a community. I would say to people, there is websites available, there is information available. Our Watch website has the information that you need. 1-800-RESPECT is a phone number you can ring. If you've got those, then you can get some information and some understanding about your situation and what you can do. That I would say to people, you know, especially the blokes out there, that, you know, White Ribbon website and the White Ribbon information will give you a whole lot of tips on how to do that.
Now, for the amount of money Nintendo are spending to make this a Super Bowl commercial, you'd think they could have made a better commercial.
Oh, not really? Really? You didn't like it?
No. You wouldn't be able to tell if it was a Pokemon ad until you see the terrible CGI Pokemon that look like they've come from Pokemon Stadium on the N64 with a bit of gloss.
They're not that bad. They're at least GameCube tier. As in, it does look kind of jarring compared to the rather sort of modern style shooting that the rest of the ad does.
Yeah. They tried to be cool too much.
But I like that though, the fact that you can dive so much into the ad to see quiet references. You have red and blue banners here, you have so many references to the Helix. But that Pikachu just looks really weird fuzzy though. Pikachu's not supposed to have fur.
So Matt, during the break, I could have played a lot of Xenoblade Chronicles X, but then Yakuza 5, after 3 years, finally came out, and holy crap, it's been 30 hours.
I'm in exactly the same boat when it comes down to it. It's like, oh my goodness, Yakuza 5 suddenly come out. Let's just drop absolutely everything because Sony have descended from the heavens to fund this fantastic localization after 3 years.
And it's been worth it. It's worth hooking up your PlayStation 3 and dealing with the weird the weird PS3 downloading stuff just to get through this game. But what actually is Yakuza 5 though?
So Yakuza 5 is a tale of deception, government conspiracy, and underground happenings involving Yakuza, police, and everything rolled in between. It is a full-on Yakuza cop drama.
That sounds really complicated.
Yeah, it's without Big Takeshi, of course. But the game is a huge amalgamation of fighting, exploration, RPG elements, and proceedings, as well as just all these off-the-cuff crazy minigames that you expect in these kinds of Japanese games.
I've spent way too much time just going to a Club Sega. In fact, I was in Tokyo like 2 months ago. I spent so much time in a Club Sega that I could have spent it in Club Sega in this game. It's crazy.
Funny thing you should mention that, because the game, especially all the cities that it involves in, like Fukuoka, Osaka, Kabukicho, or actually not Kabukicho, Kamurocho.
Close enough.
But it is just such a faithful recreation of Japanese culture, and just everything from the convenience stores to the streets to the alleys to everywhere, like all these crazy cityscapes, everything is just incredibly Japanese.
It's there, like it's a great example of virtual tourism. Like it's not quite Japan. It's not, obviously you're never going to get the same experience, but if you've never been before, it's a really good recreation. And the fighting system as well as a big part of it is really satisfying. It's just chunky, it's brutal, it's everything I want out of a fighting game.
It's incredibly visceral, but also has a surprising amount of depth to it as well. When it comes down to it, Yakuza 5 is the absolute definitive version of the combat system at the moment. It's a 3-year-old game, but it still holds up incredibly well.
I guess the one kind of down point is that it's kind of hard to get into. Like, this is the 5th game in a series that's been around for over a decade.
With a continuous story that's been going on ever since the first installment.
And not to mention, unlike other games in the series, there's no real way to catch up, but that's the thing. It is really worth catching up on Yakuza 4 just to at least get something out of this, because we've said before, this is probably it's the reason to hook up your PS3 again. It's the Persona 4 of this kind of generation, if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, and if you're running out of time as well, I think probably the best part to do is to read up this synopsis of all the previous games, the reminisce sequence if you have Yakuza 4 and catching up with that, because you'll appreciate the changes within the battle system and the exploration a hell of a lot more. The presentation is absolutely superb, lots more voice acting, everything's just so crisp and amazing. Yakuza 5 is the definitive Yakuza game. I highly recommend you go and pick it up. Trust me, 3 years, this game has aged incredibly well.
Couldn't put it any better myself.
Now, as they would have said in the review, like, this game took a long time to come to the West.
Yes. A lot of games out of both Japan and Nintendo in particular take a long time to come to Australia, which is very unfortunate.
We're getting a weird pattern nowadays, like in this current 3DS and Wii U generation, where Australia's actually getting everything first.
Yes.
Like not Kirby's Epic Yarn, Yoshi's Woolly World. We got that like 6 months before America did. It was really strange seeing that game covered in all the major American press around October last year.
It's always good when there's midnight releases for things, for online releases, and Australia gets it first because we are in the future. It's fantastic.
As in, like, it's fun, like, to just, iOS is particularly prevalent for this, where Australia and New Zealand are typically your test markets. We get to play all the, I was going to say cool iOS games, but they're all just the same free-to-play path anyway.
Yes, pretty much. But that's it for our first episode of the new year.
Yeah!
Next week you can look forward to all your favourite segments coming back.
Yes, all your favourite segments. And Old Game Plus, and news, and a new movie feature with Jason and Liam. But you know that part where those two guys talk in front of the screen? That's coming back next week.
Us too, yeah.
All your favourite characters, including the screen back there. He'll be back next week.
So look forward to that. Until then, visit our website, www.newgameplus.tv.
Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/NewGamePlusTV.
Follow Twitter and Instagram at NewGamePlusTV.
And follow us on YouTube and Twitch for live streams and videos. We are at NewGamePlusTV.
Thank you, Donald.
Thank you, Tim.
We'll see you guys next week.